Hey guys, you're back with Juzzy, and today, as promised, we're doing an install of the Noy Customs rear license plate holder. So in my last video, I installed the 4-inch 8 bars for the Hnda Rebel 500, and it's been working fantastic. This video today is going to talk about the replacement of the generic eBay, Amazon, AliExpress license plate holder that I've been using. Now I really like this holder, but as I mentioned in my last video, unfortunately we've got a whole bunch of guys that park in the multiple bays where I park in Brisbane, who are like Uber Eats scooter riders, and when they hop off their scooter, they steal a park in between a valid park, so they kind of like park on the line, and then their tyre comes back and it can bump that, unfortunately at no fault of my own. Or the guy or girl can get off their bike or scooter and then they go to walk, and because it's such narrow room between each bikes, literally each bar touches each bar, which is not supposed to happen. And then they're trying to shuffle out and manage a massive box full of hot food, and then all of a sudden a guy trips over that. And then, yeah, so that was my reason for changing. I wouldn't necessarily say it's an upgrade, but yeah, this is definitely a custom piece. But when you buy this holder from eBay, it just comes with the plate and a little mount like that. And normally you mount this bracket straight to the bolt, the bottom bolt for the shock. What I did was to make it meet the Australian compliance laws, which are that you have to be able to see the plate from a 45-degree arc from the back of the bike. I put a extension arm to bring the license plate to as far back near the end of a tyre as I could. Now it's not perfect. It would be perfect if I ran it the way I normally did, which is to put the bracket facing this way so that the number plate came out more, and it was perfect. But then I thought, oh, I better put in, because I'll take the risk and see if any police hassle me, and I'll just bring it closer to the tyre. I didn't end up getting hassled. I once got pulled over by a bike police officer that loved the bike and had no concerns of it, so that was great. But yes, as I said, the issue is with these Uber scooter people. So what I need to do is I'm going to start by unbolting this bolt. So if you're doing an install to your Hnda Rebel and you're just like, oh, this is totally different to my bike, the principles are the same. So basically you undo this bolt, which is a 13 sized socket. To undo it, I recommend you use an impact wrench. When you undo that, you then slide this one over there, and then this hole, which comes with this little bolt from Noy Customs, actually bolts into here. So this is your chain guard, and the chain guard is held in place, as you know, from factory. It's nice and secure, it won't go anywhere, and that's because underneath there's some sort of metal bracket there with a thread that you can bolt into. So that means that this then won't move in any way, because you've got two bolts, and so I won't need to use a counter sunk bolt like this one to stop this long swing arm from just hitting the ground. So this should be perfectly fine. The only thing is that to be legal, I run a wire here to this light, which is a license plate light. It's just a simple white LED. And then in Australia, we don't need to have a brake light on the license plate. So this is just a reflector I bought from eBay. So here's what it looks like from the inner side. So that just bolts to the bottom of the bracket so that when a car's behind me, it reflects and they can see me easier at nighttime. So basically what I need to do is I need to get this wire unclipped. I'm just going to use my tin snips to undo these little black zip ties I had. I had like 4 there, so it would never come undone. And then I need to route that along this tube and ultimately up to the top here. So it would point down just like this one does. Now, unfortunately, when they make this one, this tube is not hollow. As you can see, it's actually a solid bar. So it would be awesome if it was a hollow one, but then that would affect, I guess, the amount of vibration that you'd have, and it probably the plate would wiggle a bit more. When I put this extension bracket on this plate, I had to use 2 brackets. When I just used one previously, the plate tended to vibrate a bit, and I didn't want that. You can see I can move it now, move it around, and it hardly even vibrates at all. So I'm hoping that this one should be pretty solid. It's got a pretty solid bracket there. Then as you can see, the tubes are welded and it goes back to the plate frame. When I spoke to Dave Takumi, who is the agent that organizes his custom parts, I asked him, can he make this license plate to the measurements of an Australian or at least a Queensland plate? Different states have different measurements. You'd be able to do the same for most of you guys that are in America, UK or Japan that are watching. So it's all welded on, so it's not going to go anywhere. It is solid. It is a nice solid unit, and they have powder coated it black prior to shipping it out to me. So we're going to start doing this now. Just trying to think. I don't think there's anything else really that's to it, so I'll just start recording the process of taking this off and installing this new one. Alright, so I've got my friend here with Brucey today, and we just did a little wash of the bike, and now she's helping me out to do this because it's hard to record, so much appreciated for that. So we are using a 13mm socket to get this off. Now I've just put a little box here underneath because once I undo that bolt, most of you are going to be by yourself and it's just going to fall down. So if you've done what I have, you've looked at my videos, and a lot of you may just even have this already, and you're considering swapping to this one, this is the process. So what I did to stop this from falling down and as a safety backup is I put another bolt in here so that if this bolt worked itself loose, then I can rely on this to hit the bottom of a shock and it shouldn't go anywhere. You probably hear it rattle. I never had a problem, but better to be safe than sorry. Whenever you work on this bike, you will have heard me talk about it many times, and you'll see in the groups many times that these little Allen things are not very strong from factory, and especially if you're using cheapy ones that have come from overseas. So when you go to undo any bolts, do yourself a favor, go and spend 50 bucks for something like this King Chrome one, which is a hardened one, and so that if you use an impact wrench, it's also better rather than using a hand tool, because anytime you use a hand tool, you've got opportunity for movement as you ratchet the bolt. So put it on a hard setting and just try to undo it. Just make sure you've got the right size, which it is. So nice and easy to undo. So I just put a washer there on the other side so that the bolt was supported, and then just pop that to the side. So you won't need to use that. This is only if you've gone to setup and you want to change. So the next thing is that we want to undo this bolt. Now this bolt will be on your bike. I can't remember if it was grey or black before, but I just spray painted some paint over it so it looked blacked out. So put your impact wrench on the highest setting, hold your bracket bar here and just send it. So that just comes out nice and easy. You're holding onto the bracket so it doesn't fall down. So you can see here now why you need to have that bolt that I took out of here, because if this comes out, your license plate just goes for 6 down the road. So now that bracket's out, you can see here I've got a little bit of dirt from riding. So here's what the bracket looks like on one side. I just got these 2 brackets from eBay. If you just want to do this, you can have a look at my rear fender install video, where I've got a link to where to buy this bracket from AliExpress. You can use any bracket you like. As you can see, it's pretty wide, so it doesn't allow for much vibration and movement. So what I want to do is cut these off now. So that kept all my wires nice and in place. So that's what it looks like. So here's at the back of an Australian license plate. So this was actually the holder that came with the eBay one. So I assume this is really like a American size, maybe not. But I then used a series of 10mm nuts and bolts to undo this. Alright, so I don't have many more videos to do for this bike. As you know, I pretty much got everything I've done. So I may not even cut this video up into bits, because I know a lot of you like to hear me rambling, which is kind of a bit sick. So I'm just going to undo all of these. Now, of course, I don't have a hex on the other side, so it might rotate a bit. Just got to go easy. So we're in spring here at the moment in Australia, and it is pretty hot. And if I get my friend to pan up, you'll see that we have closed the garage and we are hot as in here. We've turned the fan off. So I hope all you followers really appreciate the heat that we are experiencing right now. This is all for me and all for you. So I could use my impact wrench, but holding an item this big with an impact wrench is probably not very safe. Cool. So as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Some of these bolts are just from the license plate. So the 4 that were on the outside were just from the license plate. And then I had 2 that were right up at top. You see that I drilled a hole there so that I could fit the, how was it? So that I could fit the license plate bracket, which I just bought from eBay. So it's just 3 LED lights, and it works pretty good. So I should be able to bolt that in there. Looks like it's a little bit lower than normal. I might need to drill another set of holes. We'll see in a sec. So just to show you guys, that's what it looks like. So that's just a normal bracket that you get from eBay, and it comes with a nut and bolt. So this bracket, another one on the other side, a couple of nuts and bolts to keep it all together so it doesn't vibrate. If that's what you like, then that's how you would install your one from eBay or Amazon. So I'll put that to the side here. Alright, so I've just taken off the 2 bolts for the seats, and here we are. You haven't seen this area of my bike for a year, and either have I, because my bike battery has been really good. So whilst I'm here, I'll probably just give it a little brush down, but what I just wanted to show you is that the wire that you use to run power for your license plate light at the back is actually this one. So when you have a look on a 2022, I'm not sure about the other years, I can't remember for Brucey, but you'll have a wiring harness in here, and these plugs do indicators, front, rear, and then you've got one for the brake light and the tail light. This wiring loom here, which goes to the white plug next to the orange plug, has a green and a brown. On the Hnda Rebel, green is always a negative, or what you might call it an earth. Brown is the positive wire. So this wire actually is just coming through here. And good news is that when I installed this wire previously, I think I must have been thinking that one day I may extend it to the back, and sure enough, look how long it is. It's probably about close to 1 meter long. So if you are thinking to do a custom wiring thing, give yourself enough slack, make it 1 meter or so long. And if you only want to do this one and you think you might change it like I am to later, then you can just pull this wire through, and under your seat, you can zip tie it up and just have it nice and out of the way. So all I've done is that when I bought this light, it comes with a black and a red wire inside this sheath. And then you can see here, I joined the red to the brown wire, and then the black earth for this light went to the green wire. When I used a solder tube and I used a cigarette lighter to join it together, I then just wrapped it with some heat shrink. And as you can see over here, that has been perfectly fine. And it's been sitting pretty much just on the inside of my shock. Whenever you put a wire in your bike, don't run the wire inside the shock tube. You might think it looks neat. You're asking for trouble, and it's going to pinch and it's going to go horribly wrong. So don't worry about what that looks like. Just have it placed somewhere on the inside of the shock, just here where I'm pointing, and then zip tie it somewhere so that it's out of the way. Make sure that the wire doesn't hang down and can get stuck in your chain somewhere. Otherwise, you're going to end up in hospital potentially. So here, as you can see, if I just look around this way, because I've got this K-Speed cover, all under here is open and free. If you remember from a year ago, I just put a plastic cover here to shield my brake light flasher and some of my wiring, and it's been really good. It's just dusty, as you would expect from a lot of riding on the road. You give that a little brush, and it's all good. So, now that we know that this one's going to reach the back license plate, that's great. So what we can do now is undo this one here, which is the support for the chain guard. Okay, so I'm just using an adapter straight to an impact point. Don't absolutely send it, just do it lightly. Now there isn't a nut on the back here. The nut is actually welded to this bracket. So here's what the chain looks like. Some guys buy the Diablo chain guard cover. I didn't do that, but it looks cool, but it's not a necessity. So now that that bolt's come out, you don't necessarily need to use this grey one from Noy Custom. You can see that this one's got a chamfered edge there, so that it clears this thick plastic chain guard, and then the thread goes in. So I think that I'll just reuse the existing black one because I like it. I like the blacked out look. So now I'm going to get this light over there. I'm going to feed this bolt back into here. And actually, sorry, before I pop that in, I'm just going to put some Loctite, a tiny dab of Loctite right up near here, so that when it's in there, this bolt won't loosen out. And I'm going to do the same for this one. I'm going to put a tiny dab on that. All right, so we found that this bolt that was supplied, maybe it wasn't quite long enough to go through. So basically the girth of this chain guard plus the girth of this bracket probably left it with about that much thread to go in. And just to be more safe, I've just put one of these ones in that actually came with the eBay bracket. I would guess that that's an M6 thread, and that's probably about 15 mil long. You don't want to go too long, because if you do, the bolt on the other side will hit this sprocket for the chain. So I'd say max 2 centimeters, but try and get a 15 millimeter long bolt. So now that we've got this new one in, we just hand tighten that in. Alright, so just as I was putting that together, I realised that I hadn't put a dab of Loctite on this bolt. Loctite's important because you don't want any of this stuff coming undone. That's probably a bit more than what I actually need, actually. So I'm just going to tap that down a bit. It only needs a little bit. So you can go ahead and thread that in. Alright, so I forgot about this, but the reason why I had put this non-genuine bolt into the shock is because when I put these double brackets on here, I needed a longer thread to tighten into there. And so basically, I've got a bolt here, which is about that much difference in length. So I won't use that anymore. I'll just put this one on. When I tighten things to a bike, I much prefer to use a hex bolt rather than an inner hex bolt. It just means that the opportunity for this to round off is a bit less than this one, but I don't actually have one that I think is the right size here at home. So for now, I'm just going to pop this in, but if you can, try and put the factory bolt back in. I can't find it, who knows where it is. But again, whenever you put a bolt on your bike, always use Loctite. Then you can use your impact wrench. So I'm just swapping this over to the inner one for now, for the purpose of this video. So that's nice and tight now. Also on this, before I put this bolt in, I've just put a big nice washer there as well to spread the load so that the bracket is supported. Alright guys, so we paused the video for a while because once we went to go and see if we can put this light bracket back on top, of course the holes that come are different to what we use in Australia, and that's totally fine, because I was saying that what I can do is use a drill to drill out new holes. So this is my license plate. Queensland just simply has a bolt hole in each corner, and I simply just put it in place, drilled a pilot hole, elongated the hole so it's big enough to fit a bolt through. So that's fine for these. What I did find though is that the plate is longer, it's taller than my, the bracket is taller than my plate. So to make it nice and easy, I'm actually going to cut along here. Now you may not have to do this. I'm pretty sure that this would be an American size because everything in the world's for America. If it's not though, then all you need to do is get yourself one of these grinders, just use a thin little grinding disc and just grind it off. It's not hard. If you've never used it before though, take it to a shop if you're not sure how to do it. So I was going to drill a hole for this lower left corner, but where our Australian bolt hole is, unfortunately on the back, the tube, the bracket holder with the weld is right there. So that means I'm only going to hold my plate in with 3 bolts, and that's going to be totally fine. But what I also need to put on is this reflector, so that it's legal in Queensland. So when I put these bolt holes through, I'll have this one through the back and it'll sit like that. But on this side, I'm just going to put a very thin, small little zip tie, so that or 2, so that bracket is held there, so that this doesn't swing down like this one day. So to make it nice and neat, the last step of the process will be what I do actually have to use the grinder, the cutter, to cut along here, so that I don't have all this blackness behind the plate looking too big. I want it to look like it's right for my bike. When you go into the custom world, this is the sort of stuff that you have to do. You could be very specific with them. I did give them the measurements, but it doesn't seem to have been right on the height. So it's no problem. I'm not complaining about it at all. I just have to make do. So basically I will use the grinder to cut that off, try and level it out as good as I can, and we'll resume. Alright guys, so we have just used the grinder to cut the bottom part of the bracket off, as you can see there. And then now what we've done is I've, as I said, used a zip tie just on that corner because I can't put a bolt through because of the mount and the weld on the back there. But it's fine because there's 3 bolts holding it. This is just to hold the bracket for the reflector to the number plate. So after cutting the bracket, I've painted over it in nice and black so that the plate can go on there. Now, I really like these. I think they're made by Altrex. You can buy them from, in Queensland we buy them from Super Cheap Auto. I think this one I might have bought from eBay, but it says yourplateframes.com.au. So if you're in Queensland and you're looking to do something like this, you can buy this. So these ones are just held in by these little plastic clips. So basically it's got a rubber on here to stop rattling. So it just pushes against your plate like that. And then you use these clips to push down. Use my wet wipe to wipe this down. Later on I can just use some Windex to wipe it even further. So these clips, shorter side to the front, longer side to the back. And what I've just found is that if you tighten the bolt that goes between the plate and the frame too much, then it becomes really hard to put these clips on. And these are only plastic, so it can be generally easy to crack them. But you can buy spares of just these clips from Super Cheap Auto if you're in Australia. So short side to the front. It's kind of sad because this is one of the last videos I may be uploading for this bike, because as you know I've done everything, just about everything I need to do. So unless something comes out that just amazes me, I probably won't be swapping anything out. But I do tend to muck around with mirrors. So I do have an order for that's going to come from WeBike for some mirrors soon, so I may do a video for that. Alright, so right now that's nice and tight. So if you look around this other side, what I find is best to do is to tighten this bolt at the end, if you can. It's kind of hard because you need to have a gap to fit the plate in, but then you also try to tighten this one, and it will eventually tighten even though you haven't got a Allen key on this side. Just a temperamental thing, put some force on it and it eventually will start to grab. Alright guys, so here's the completed install. So as I was mentioning, I will need to actually replace that light that I've got on top of the license plate. So what I've done is, as I was saying at the beginning of the video, unfortunately these tubes aren't hollow, so I do actually have to put a tiny zip tie just there. It's not really that noticeable, but I've just fed the wire for that on the inner side there. I did not put it actually inside the chain guard because I don't want any safety concerns, but I've ran it underneath this bracket and then outside this metal tab, so it is outside, and then yeah, it goes back up into under the seat. So here's what it looks like from the side. First thing I noticed is that the bike looks way slender and just longer, but obviously it's just a plate frame. But just being so used to having something hanging out the side there previously, it'll probably take a week or so for me to get used to it. But the main objective was so that people wouldn't trip over the bike. So as you can see, someone hops off their bike and they're delivering food, etc., etc., they can just go straight out. Okay, so I'll just go from this side. So as you can see, it gives you about 2 to 3 fingers gap from the back of a tyre. And then from the front, yeah, so from this side it looks neat as it normally does, but as you can see I'm standing well and truly at the side of the bike, so it's literally like where it would be from factory. So I've got the reflector bolted in at the middle and the light will be on there soon. I think I've only probably ridden once at night time, so for now it's okay, and if I get pulled over, the police shouldn't really care about it. The one thing about this is because the bolt holes are in the fixed position, you can't actually tilt this one up and down to your liking. So in reality, it is at a good height. It's very easy to see. It's not too low. If you wanted to, you'd probably have to elongate those holes for the bracket so that it could sit up, but I think that it's just above center, just above the horizontal line to the floor. All right, guys, so comment down below what you think about this video. Hope you've enjoyed it. Just remember, you can purchase this through Dave Takumi, which is Takumi's World International. And then, yeah, the maker of the product is Noy Custom. If you've got any questions, please feel free to comment down below. Have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.